In the previous video we scraped this text with Selenium. In this video we're going to scrape this value here, which is dynamic. You can see it's changing as I'm talking. So this value is just a random number that is being generated by this website. So it's not the actual average world temperature right now. But for education purposes we can suppose that we can pretend this is some real world value, right? And we want to scrape that. Later on we're going to scrape that every 5 seconds or so and store that value in a text file. So each value is going to be inside a text file, or you could also add it in the same text file. So create a table, the row containing each value. But for now we're just going to scrape one single value one time. So let's do that. I'm going to fork this repo, so to duplicate it, the previous one, since most of the code is the same. So what do we have to change here? Well, I think we have to change the value, so the XPath. Therefore, let's go here, right click over this, go to inspect element, and this should be hidden somewhere, so you can scroll until you see that this part here is highlighted. So it's somewhere here. If we expand that, so that is H1, that text, and the next one is the next H1 is this one in here. So if you expand that, you will see average world temperature now 26, and it changes to 20, 21, and so on every 3 seconds or so. You want to click over that div, right? Go to copy XPath and then paste it in here. So as the value of the value argument. Now, this doesn't look right to me because it's just slash div. What we had before was this slash HTML slash body slash div, one index div h1 index 1, and that was the XPath for the text, for this text. So it seems to me like things are not working this time as they are supposed to. So it's not always as straightforward as just clicking over an element and getting the XPath as it was in our previous video. Sometimes you will not get the XPath because the HTML structure could be more complicated, as it is in this case. So in that case we want to use our logic, our knowledge about what this XPath is. So let's look at this previous XPath, right? So I'm going to keep it somewhere in here and explain you what this means. So you see HTML slash HTML slash HTML means this document, right? So this is like a hierarchy. Slash HTML slash body. Slash body is this main tag here. Now this tag, this element or tag, whatever you like to call it, contains other tags. It contains a div tag. You see here this div, but we have this div here, right? And we also have another div in this level. So under body we have one div, we have two divs. Therefore, this one here means we are getting the first div. So that one, and not that one. Then if we expand the first div, you see that we have another div inside, right? This one in here. So HTML body, this is body, div1, this div1, not the other one which was under here somewhere, and then we have this div, so that one, and then we have h1, so this h1 the first one, not this second H1. Now this was the case for that text, right? That one. For this thing here, for this value, we want to get the second H2. Therefore, we want to change this to 2. That's all we have to do. So just change that to 2 and run. And as we wait for the execution to finish, I'd like to give you a tip. So if you don't want to use this hard way of finding out the XPath of an element as we did here, so we tried to use some logic, some thinkings of the hierarchy, how it works. So if you want an easier way, you should use Google Chrome browser. So here I am on Google Chrome, and if I right click over here and go to inspect, and so it should show you the element for that, but if it doesn't, try to figure out where it is by expanding these elements. And then, so this is the one, right? H1, the second H1. And then you want to right click and go to copy, and then go to copy full XPath, not copy XPath, so copy full XPath. And let's see now what I have on my clipboard. You see, it's the same XPath that we constructed manually ourselves. So Google Chrome is an easier option. Let's go back to a REPL now to see if the script has finished running. Now we see the browser, so Selenium is accessing it, and it got the average world temperature now, the text, but not the value. It didn't get the value because see what's happened. When we just load the browser, after about 2 seconds the value appears, so it's not appearing immediately. In those cases, what you want to do is you want to use the time module, and before you extract the elements, you want to stop the script for 2 seconds maybe. So time.sleep. So we get the driver right for this particular web page, and that means we are loading the page. Here we have opened the page at this point, but then we stay on the page for 2 seconds, and then we look at this particular element, right? Let's try. You see, the script waited a bit, and then it extracted that text together with the value. Now you say, oh, I just want the value, 22. In this case, I don't want the entire text. For that, we need to do some manipulation of the text. What I would do is not work on this function, but create a new function instead, which is only responsible for cleaning out that text. So you could write that function somewhere in here, define clean text perhaps, and so this gets as input maybe a text parameter, and let's give it a docstring, so an explanation what this function does. Extract only the temperature from text with triple quotes, and then the output is going to be text dot. So what can we do? How can we split this? Yeah, we can split it using a split method. So text strings have a split method, which could split a string into 2 parts. We want to split it at this character. So there is a colon and there is a space. Now this will give us a list, because you know, if you split some text, so let's get this text, put it there and apply split like that. Yes, that's what we're doing. you get a list of 2 items. The first item is the first part, the second is the second part, and you don't get this colon and the space in any of these because that's the split character. So out of that list we want the second item, which has an index of 1. So this one has an index of 1, and you see this is a string, so I'm going to convert it into a float like that. You could also use an integer here, so int instead of float, but this is more inclusive. So if this website decides to show decimal point numbers instead of integers in the future, then your script would still work. So let's convert it into a float, and then this is a function. Now here, instead of returning element.text, we return the cleaned version of that element.text. So that makes sense. Oh, don't forget to return output. Right. So what's happening here is that this function is called in here, and element.text is going to provide this argument with input. So element.text goes there, the entire text, and then that text is split into a list and converted into a float stored in this variable. This variable is returned in here. We have an error. It should be output, right? And so output then is returned in here. So this entire thing is equal to that output. Run and see what we'll have as output. Whoa, good, we made it. So that's the complete script. Thank you so much for following, and I'm happy to talk to you in the next videos. See you there.